Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to WatchYouWant.com. Thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at a blast from the past, courtesy of Vacheron Constantin of Geneva. Now, this watch from the Le Historique collection is the Vacheron Constantin Toledo 1952, and it highlights an interesting phenomenon, which is that despite the fact that round watches predominate in the modern luxury watch market, it seems like all of the true classic non-round references date from roughly the first half of the 20th century. Those that were set in stone, that kind of set the mold for non-round classic references, from the Cartier Santos of 1904 to the Patek Philippe Gondolo of 1913, Vacheron's own Tonneau of 1912, watches like the Cartier Tank of the 19-teens or the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso of the 1930s, and of course the carree galbe shape, or the Ciccolatone, Vacheron Constantin sort of rounded rectangle of the early 50s. Those watches stuck and they endured, and they endeared themselves to watch collectors in a way that you just don't see new non-round references achieving in the modern market. So the ones we have are well loved, enduring, and they tend to come back. And in 1998, Vacheron, with the first of its historic references, revived the carree galbe, the Ciccolatone shape, in a 38mm case, and in 2003, having formalized the Le Historique collection, they brought back the Toledo 1952 that you see right here. Now, this design is based on the reference triple calendar that it had been preceded by a time-only variant, but the triple calendar debuted 1 year after the famed Ciccolatone rectangle watch, and the triple calendar today, powered by sister brand Jaeger-LeCoultre's in-house caliber 891-448 modular calendar movement. It's actually, interestingly, the same movement that's inside my Master Moon here, but finished to a Vacheron standard in the Toledo 1952. And the Toledo 1952 adds a level of elegance, dial articulation, case complexity, and overall finish that I've got to admit my Master Moon doesn't quite equal. And it starts with this dial. That's right, despite the shape of the case, I'm going to start from the dial and work my way outward. Now, in 2003, when Vacheron revived this triple calendar Ciccolatone shape with the Toledo 1952, they were careful to scale everything up in proportion. So the radial date that you see right here actually traces the outline of the rectangle, and it touches just tangent to the edges right here. It's actually a gorgeous interplay of the rectangular shape juxtaposed to the circular center. So there's a lot of articulation, but there's also depth. The contrast of levels of the dial and shapes of the case and the circular date track add a lot of visual interest. And you can see when I turn it sideways how the apertures for the date window, the aperture for the moon phase, the track of the date, and that little chin at the bottom really cut into the dial and add complexity. Now, the dial itself does feature an interesting sort of vertically striated articulation, a guilloche, solely within the circumference and within the surface area of this date track. It's actually silvered and smooth all around the edge, bordered by a sector or railroad track at the very periphery of the dial. There's a lot of detail going on here, and it's down to cues as subtle as the quadruple faceted indexes. So you see the applied Arabic numerals in yellow gold, 2, 4, 8, 10. But then there are also indexes, rectangular indexes, a total of 5 of them, with beautiful pyramidal quadruple faceted shapes, also applied 18 karat yellow gold, just like the Maltese cross at 12 o'clock, the Vacheron Constantin symbol. And there is a beautiful brass moon phase disc with blue applied over it and the shape of the stars relieved into the brass to shine, and radiantly you can sort of see that glimmer in the right light. It's quite beautiful, quite subtle, but it's delightful. Like everything else about this watch, refinement is in the subtle details. Now, the triple date is quite easy to comprehend. You can see today it's set to Tuesday, February 10th, and the nice thing about these triple dates is that they're the everyday complication. You can refer to this watch every day of the year and it'll tell you useful information. Not just the time, but when you're writing letters, drafting emails. I find it's a convenience. The romance of the moon phase speaks for itself, but the date itself is still useful. I find that I refer to my date watches every day, and having the complete calendar, especially now around Valentine's Day when you're sending out manually written letters, that's a nice touch, and it's a convenient thing to have on the watch. Now, the case itself is quite complex. It's not just a rectangle. It's actually cambered, as is the crystal itself, and multi-layered. Now you can see from the side this 18-karat yellow gold treatment features not a single step, but 3 steps to the bezel and 1 step to the case flank, and it breaks up the mass of the watch. Now this watch is about 41 millimeters tall, about 35.7 millimeters wide. I'd say it wears roughly like a 42 millimeter conventional round watch, so it has good wrist presence and a lot of reassuring premium pull to the mass of it. All that gold makes its presence felt, not just visually, but on the wrist, so you get to enjoy the feel of owning a true premium product and experiencing it, even when you're not looking at the dial. But the bottom line is it's never overbearing. Vacheron knows its business, and it worked hard to make sure that it broke up the mass of this case so that it's massive in wrist feel only. Visually, it's quite well articulated, it's quite nimble to the eye. The watch does feature a beautiful brown, lightly bolstered, single-stitched alligator strap that I feel pairs beautifully with the yellow gold, and in traditional fashion, with a nod to history, Vacheron equips this one with a Maltese cross pin buckle. Very easy to size this up quickly. It's nice because you don't have to worry about pulling a deployant every time your wrist expands or contracts a bit in hot or cold weather. Now, the Jaeger-LeCoultre caliber is a great tradition in Vacheron history. The two companies have been joined at the hip, it seems, for the last 60 years. From their joint distributorship by the Longines-Wittnauer Group in the U.S. during the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, when they collaborated on importation of movements and watches, and even developed one movement, the 480 CW, for the mystery watch together during the 50s, to their time in the Richemont Group today. They've shared a lot of technology and fine watchmaking savoir-faire, so to have this JLC movement in the Vacheron case finished to Vacheron's own Geneva standard, to me, that's a peerless combination of pedigree and tradition, and it's very befitting of the best precedents of Swiss watchmaking. There's a lot of talk about in-house movements today, in-house this, in-house that. The bottom line is inspiration and execution are everything. With this watch, 100% original in its style, and the combination of the best in terms of finishing and styling from Vacheron, with the mechanical watchmaking, engineering, muscle of Jaeger-LeCoultre, that's a double pedigree to me. In no way does that dilute. If anything, to me, that's additive pedigree and additive prestige. And this watch on the wrist, I'm going to show you a little bit about how it wears, because I've talked a bit about its wrist presence, about how it wears like a 42. And you can see on my wrist, it's quite nice because the lugs are short, curved, and because the strap is in no way conforming to the case, it's not a conformed leather strap that, basically covers up that little seam there. It has full articulation and the ability, if you want, to pull it straight down relative to the case for a snug fit, even on the most petite wrists. Mine is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters, and the bottom line is this wears beautifully. It's not too high. It doesn't project so much that you would worry about snagging it on a cuff. The bottom line is that stepped bezel, you can see it from the side, it actually has tremendous tumble home. That is, from the center, it actually tumbles away toward the side and gets relatively lower in profile as you move away from the center. So when the cuff first encounters it, it slides up and over it quite easily. So as a dress watch, Vacheron sort of did their homework and made sure that ergonomically, not only does it work well on the wrist, but everything it may encounter on the wrist. Now this watch, this Vacheron Constantin Toledo 1952 Les Historiques collection, is available from watchyouwant.com with all original Vacheron boxes, papers, and accessories. Everything you would have received at the authorized dealer or boutique in 2003 is included with this watch. So if you like the look of the past, but you prefer the wrist presence of a contemporary dress watch, this Vacheron Constantin Toledo 1952 triple calendar moon phase may be just the watch you want.